if you're wondering what assets you're going to be able to keep in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy or even a Chapter 13, I'm going to tell you the long and the short answer, okay? The short answer is, I don't know. It depends, okay? The long answer is there's a whole set of rules built into the bankruptcy code about what you can and you can't keep. And so let me give you the basics, because these are the ones that most people are concerned about, right? Cars, houses, and basic necessities, okay? I think it's pretty common sense that if you have an original Mona Lisa or signed copy of the Declaration of Independence, then that's going to be a problem, right? Because you have a very valuable asset and you're saying, hey, I don't have anything of value. I'm not able to pay my debts. Well, that clearly wouldn't be true, but most people don't have those types of things lying around. And what they're most concerned about is, am I going to lose my car? Am I going to lose my house? And sometimes people are like, oh, I think I'm going to lose everything. You know, they're going to come in and confiscate my clothes. So let me put that fear to rest for you. First of all, there are things built into the law called exemptions, and they're just basically a way for all of us to say, you know what, even if we're going through bankruptcy, even if we need that protection that's built into the law and the Constitution, it doesn't really make sense for us to just pull the rug out from under people and leave them destitute with nothing. So we give them an allowance, so to speak, for the basics. Okay? Nobody comes in and takes your clothes. Nobody takes your bed. Nobody takes your furniture. You know, you're allowed to have the stuff that you have within reason. Okay? If you have a normal television, they're not going to come in and take your television. If you have a 120-inch plasma hanging on the wall, you might have a problem. All right? Cars, you're allowed a certain amount of dollar value in equity. Okay? And that's important. You want to pay attention to the part that I said, where I said equity, because what they don't pay attention to is if that equity is eaten up by debt. Okay? If you have a $20,000 car and you owe $20,000, doesn't matter. They don't want it. They're not going to come in and take it. If you have a $20,000 car and no debt, okay, then the exemption you're given for a car in your particular area is not going to be enough, most likely, to cover that entire amount of equity. And so, you know, you want to speak to your lawyer about how to approach that situation, because there are ways to make absolutely sure that you don't lose that vehicle, even if it's not fully exempted. Okay? And then, of course, your house. That's the big one that everybody wants to know about. Well, there's also an exemption built in every state for houses. Now, what it's called is the homestead exemption. Okay? And it varies from state to state to state. Now, you have states like Florida, for example, where it's unlimited. Okay? And you have guys like OJ, who filed bankruptcy, and they were able to keep these big $1 million houses and protect them, because in Florida, it's an unlimited homestead. You have states like here in Utah, where the homestead is $20,000 per spouse. Okay? So you can protect, if you're married, up to $40,000 worth of equity in a home. Now, let's go through a worst case scenario. Let's say you have $80,000 worth of equity in a home, and so you're worried that you might lose your house because you have this equity built up, but at the same time, circumstances have changed and you're having trouble paying your bills. Not a problem. That's why we invented Chapter 13s, okay? It allows you to protect that equity and say, hey, you know, I understand there's equity there, so what we want to do is make some kind of an arrangement where we can pay our bills on time and make sure everybody's taken care of, but make sure that we don't lose the equity in our house. So if you have that issue, if you're worried about equity, first call a lawyer who does this for a living, who's a bankruptcy expert, okay? Talk to them about it and just share your concern, because here's the thing, this is what most people, where people run into problems, is they think that something's going to go wrong, and so in their mind, it already did. And then what ends up happening is they choose to do nothing, they don't take action, they sit and wait, they bury their head in the sand, and then the things they feared the most come true because they didn't take action, and you know, the house ends up going to foreclosure, or the car gets repossessed, or or they start getting slammed with judgments and garnishments, and then it really is a worst case scenario. Okay, so the worst thing you can do if you're facing some of these things, or if you see them coming, you have a little bit of foresight, you know what's happening, and you know that 6 months from now that might be the place where you're at, talk to somebody now. If you call up a bankruptcy lawyer, doesn't mean you did it, doesn't mean you actually filed bankruptcy. There's no effect on you or your credit whatsoever. And I know that sounds silly for me to tell you that, okay? But nevertheless, this is what most people end up doing, is they ignore it, it gets worse and worse and worse, and then there's a big problem. So talk to somebody now, even if you think it's presumptuous or too early.